Why do we gravitate towards complex finances? Today, we explore how simplifying your finances can lead to greater control, peace of mind, and a clearer path to financial independence. Here we go. Welcome to the Forget About Money podcast, where we encourage you to take action today so that you can focus on what matters most to you. Today, we welcome Naseema McElroy. She's a registered nurse, financial coach, and personal finance blogger. She runs the Financially Intentional blog and podcast and was successful for paying off nearly $1 million in debt, mostly in student loans. Welcome, Naseema.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So I reached out to you the last week, and one of the topics we thought about talking about is why do people think finances have to be complicated?
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking, not necessarily whether they are or aren't complicated, but why we think and why maybe the general masses think that they're complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we think that finances are simple? One of the ideas that came to mind was the amount of bombardment that we get, whether it's from family members, fellow church members, whether it's a commercial, whether it's social media, whether it's ads on social media trying to sell courses or this is how you get rich, that kind of thing. But what we don't see are messages that imply that it can be simple. So in your experience, why do you think people think that finances have to be challenging?
I was one of those people, so I can speak firsthand. I think that especially if you didn't grow up around wealth, or you grew up kind of like, for me, I would feel like I was like wealthy, like adjunct, like I would like to the side. Like I saw wealth. A lot of my friends were very affluent, but I always grew up, I was raised by a single dad. Like we just were at the point where we just had enough. We didn't qualify for like government assistance, but healthcare was unattainable for us, So I always was like, I don't understand that. And the way that those people got to where they're at seems like super complicated. And I was like, let me just focus on what I have control over initially. And for me, that was making sure I got really good grades, making sure I got into a really good school, and therefore, get into a really good job and start making really good money. And then when I got to that point, I was like, okay, I'm done with all this school. Now I can like drill into like this PhD level of trying to understand how to build wealth, right? And so I was just like, okay, now I can take this time to really just learn. And I really thought like that's how much knowledge I needed to acquire in order to really understand finances, really understand how to grow my wealth, because I understood fundamentally that making money doesn't make you wealthy. But getting to that other side, I was just like, I need to really understand this, because I wasn't at the point where I was ready to like relinquish it over to somebody else to do it for me. I really wanted to understand it for myself.
I appreciate your sharing, like how you thought about it as you were, going through your youth to education and to young adulthood, which made me think about like how people think about finances. Now, in your case, you might just be thinking about investing, the investing part of being simple or complicated. But finances is kind of broad. I mean, so as I got older, and that's not just, the traditional way you graduate high school, go to college, you get a part-time job or whatever it is, or you get a real job, and then you figure out how to pay bills, credit cards come around, debts come around. And so it's not just the investing piece. Yeah. It's how do you manage credit cards? How do you manage your different bank accounts? And over time, unless you know what the end result is supposed to look like, it can get really messy.
Yeah.
I would think that if somebody's listening to this and they want to know if their finances are complicated, they should ask themselves, like, do they have multiple credit cards with differing interest rates? Do they have several banking or investment accounts? Do they, if they're not organized and not cleaned up, maybe they have overdraft fees if that's still a thing. I hope banks aren't doing that, but they might.
Oh, they definitely do. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Still a thing.
yeah. Or are they missing payment deadlines?
Yeah.
Are their spreadsheets complicated? Or do they have like multiple systems for budgeting? And just in general, do they have difficulty in managing and understanding financial issues just in general?
Yeah.
So if you ever answered yes to any of those questions, I think you could say that at least somewhat my finances are complicated and I could do some work to simplify them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We also talked about the influences of like societal norms and pressures and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess social media could fall into that category as well.
Definitely. It definitely does.
How do you think those kind of pressures contribute to financial complexity and affect how people, like maybe how often they review their financial plans or what action they even take initially to get from point A to point B? Point A meaning where they're at now financially, and point B being whatever monetary objective or investment objective that they have.
I mean, social media in itself, I really feel like makes people think that, social media is a highlight reel, right? And so they just see the best of people and they think that that's what they should be aspiring to, not understanding like a lot of the story behind where they got to where they are and the struggles that they had to go through. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. And a lot of times social media is about selling you things. And so people feel like financial success means having a nice house, having a really nice car, and not understanding the financial implications of those. So they don't think about budgeting. They don't think about earning money. They think about, how they are presented. Do they look wealthy? Therefore, they are wealthy, instead of like really understanding what true wealth is, like understanding a net worth, understanding like that their primary home isn't typically an investment, like all of these things. And so then when you talk about like budgeting and, understanding how to pay bills and understanding how not to overdraw a bank account and understanding how not to overconsume credit cards and having multiple credit cards or multiple loans or all of these things, I think people don't even get to that point because they have done all of the things that they thought that they were supposed to do societally. And it's not until they really get intentional and drill down and see like, oh, I did a lot of these things to impress people that don't even really care about me, or because I thought that this is what, making it looks like. So I think that that's the point where people are at, and they have gotten themselves into like this place where they might feel ashamed about the things that they have done financially. And so they're kind of scared to take that next step. And like one of the biggest questions that I get is like, okay, so where do I start now? Right. So I'm at this place that I want to change, but like, how do I start? Where's the first thing? What is the first thing that I can do to kind of turn this around? And a lot of it is simplifying things.
So even for people who might identify that they're in a more complex financial situation and then they're ready to make that change, but then they still don't know where to go because they still hear their friends talking about Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. They hear about, you've got to create a course and sell it online. They hear about whatever job opportunities that they may or may not be qualified for, but maybe their friend has a big high paying job and now they want to go do something else that's out of their lane a little bit.
Or the entrepreneurial pool, like just leave your 9-to-5 and be an entrepreneur and all your financial woes will be solved.
So whether it's keeping up with the Joneses that drive that desire to improve your finances, or I guess bluntly, probably make more money is probably what's in their mind, so that they can either live a more extravagant lifestyle or invest or save for retirement or get out of debt, whatever it is. But once somebody decides they want to make a change, they still don't know exactly what to do. So they probably default to what they hear.
Yep.
So then they're spending the $20,000 that they have in their savings account, which they may not have any other retirement accounts going on. Then their friends like, hey, you should Bitcoin. I made $30,000 last year. And they're like, oh, sweet, I'll do that. And the next thing you know,
that's
and that is definitely not simple. That's a complicated investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw this like it to speak on that. I saw this meme that like just hit the nail on the head for me. It's like people want to get started, right? But they're at the bottom of the stairs, right? And instead of taking the first step, they extend their leg all the way to the fourth step and try to make it like over complicated, like going for those investments, like the meme stocks and the Bitcoins and all that kind of stuff. Instead of doing those basic things at first, like getting your budget in order, making sure that you're invested in your company retirement account, like those basic things that are just like the first step that seem like kind of boring. I think like people think like you're not winning fast enough, like you're not getting those dopamine hits fast enough, and so you don't think that they matter. But those are your foundational things that if you get those in order, you'll be set financially.
Naseema, you have an incredible story regarding finances. Can you share a personal experience where you had to simplify your finances and what impact it made on your life?
Yeah, I mean, again, like when I was starting out on this journey, like I said, I thought it was going to be like this PhD kind of level, like thing that I had to do. The most impactful thing that I actually did was learn how to budget. And I started using a zero-based budget and shifting that relationship with my money, and started telling my money where to go in advance and having that control, but also making sure that I, incentivized myself in that process by making sure I had money to go on trips and do the things that were fun for my daughter. That was the fundamentally like best thing I ever could have learned how to do, and it's carried me through this point.
What were the psychological benefits of moving from your complicated financial situation to a simplified one?
It took so much mental strain off of me because I was always the one like up at night thinking about like, how come I'm making this amount of money, but I don't have anything to show for it? But when I shifted that relationship and was like, I know exactly where every single one of my dollars is going, it was so freeing.
It seems like the worry that you were feeling before got displaced from you, and you put that burden of worry on the budget itself. I'm not sure if you used an app or maybe what you said zero-based. What first comes to my mind is like YNAB. I'm not sure if you used that or a different app.
I started out, YNAB can be a little bit complicated, but I started off actually because I was kind of in that Dave Ramsey space with Every Dollar, and Every Dollar had just came out, like literally launched the month that I started learning how to budget. And that tool in itself was amazing for me. I've since moved on to different budgeting apps, but Every Dollar was really, really helpful.
But doing that reduced your anxiety, it reduced your stress.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It gave you a greater sense of control and clarity. And I'm assuming it improved your mental health.
Definitely. And I finally was meeting my financial goals, right? I knew I wanted to be debt free by a certain age, and it created that roadmap for me. And it was the first time that I really felt at peace with my money, and that transitions over to every other part of your life. So, yeah.
Now, we are in the financial independence space and early retirement, financial independence. When I think of complex versus simple finances, for me, I think it's much easier to just manage if it's simple. So,
yeah.
In particular with financial independence, I know one of the overarching, at least for the base of most people in the financial independence community of their retirement portfolio, is index fund investing, low cost, just funnel it, broad market, low cost index fund investing. You make money, you put it there. And now you might prioritize how like which types of accounts that you put it in. But that's still pretty darn simple when you do that versus trying to research and pick individual stocks, which, as we know, doesn't usually turn out well for like day traders and pick stocks. And this is generally, I know somebody's out there going to be like, I made so much money last week on day trading. That's not what we're talking about here.
That's not what we're talking about. Yeah.
But I think it's easier to track your progress towards your financial goals. It's more efficient saving and investing strategies, because rather than picking multiple stocks over here, funds over here, real estate over here, Bitcoin over here,
Yep.
or whatever it is. You don't have all those things to track and manage. And I do think the more things that you have going on, you have a greater risk of making a mistake.
Definitely.
Somewhere along the line, this affects this investment affects this other investment in this way, and I didn't see it ahead of time. So again, whereas you were talking about how simplicity calmed your mind and set you more to ease and allowed you to sleep a little bit better at night. I don't see that happening the more complex it happens.
No. Yeah. And I think one way I have like complicated my finances a little bit is just like in running my business. And so it kind of drives me crazy because I just be like, man, if I was just like a nurse and, I'm just worried about managing my nursing income, I would be so much further along. Things would be so much simpler. But one of the pivotal things for me that like changed my perspective on managing my money and building wealth was the book, A Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And he was just like, listen, it doesn't really have to be hard. I did all the hard things. So, I can attest that doing all of those hard, complicated investments don't necessarily yield you the financial results that you think that you're going to get. Just keep it simple, broad-based index funds, set it and forget it. It's about time in the market, not timing the market. And that right there was the pivotal point for me as far as like going from, doing all this heavy lifting of paying off my debt to actually getting to a place where I was increasing my wealth rapidly.
Yeah, you talk about simpler doesn't mean less returns, but for some reason we think the more complicated an investment strategy is, the higher rate of return we're going to get. And that just turns out simply not the case. SPIVA or SPIVA, which is, I'm not sure if it's an organization, a government organization, or independent, but they put out a report. And SPIVA stands for S&P 500 versus active. S&P index versus active. So what that measures is over how many years does a passively managed fund beat or not beat its actively managed counterpart. So the latest that I saw from, and we'll include the link in the show notes here, but the latest report that I saw was that over a 15-year period, only 12% of actively managed funds outperformed an S&P 500 index fund. So once you see that, and these are professional money managers who are actively managing these funds. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We can talk about cost, we can talk about fees, we can talk about biases or, individuals, whoever the managers are, just making mistakes or not ideal choices. But the bottom line is, and what people should use for their planning is, if you have an 88% chance of not making as much money going active, why would you ever go active? Just do passive. It's simpler.
It's simple.
And over time, provides you with a better return.
Great returns. Yeah. I'm going to have to look at that report because I think people need to see that. But the reason why I feel like people make it complicated is because they've never managed their portfolio. And then people are telling them that, they need somebody to manage it for them, or they assume that they need somebody to manage it for them. And then there's this other group of people, like life insurance people, that are just like, well, you should get into this life insurance product because then you'll have guaranteed returns and then you don't have to worry about the crazy fluctuations in the stock market without telling you all the front loaded fees and all of this stuff and really how much money you're losing by putting your money into those products. But, it's free financial advice. And so they think that they need to go that route to protect their money because, investing is gambling, isn't it?
No, it isn't.
Exactly.
But you bring up a good point as far as the salespeople out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the major reasons why people don't get the message that investing can be simple, because there's not a whole lot of money in it, or not, because if you think about, the book Simple Path to Wealth costs you maybe $20.
Yeah.
$20 versus 1% of assets under management for the rest of your life to somebody to take, I'm not, again, there's statistics out there, but over time, it's like 56% of your, I don't know, it's ridiculous how much
just crazy
difference it makes between just 1% in overall return. So when people pay an investor because they think that they can't do it themselves to manage their money, their chances of them actually faring far worse is high than if they just did it themselves and went the simple path to wealth approach. You brought up insurance. I don't know what you think about this, but I'm of the belief that, and there's investing by itself, and then there's insurance by itself. Don't join the two ever. And the people that will make the case for it are usually insurance salesmen.
They're the only people. The only people that will advocate for that are the people that have a vested interest in making money off of those products. Other than that, you won't hear too many people advise, you to do that. I don't really know any other people that would advise you to do that except for the people that sell it. So, yeah.
And if you're listening to this wondering why, just do some own research from reputable bloggers and some professionals, and you can kind of hopefully understand why I endorse the belief that insurance has its role, investing has its role, but try not to combine them. Because then one, you will likely be disappointed at some point, realizing like what could have been if you'd have just kept them separate. And then it's still simpler too. You don't have complicated intricacies and overlapping of the insurance policy, how it intertwines with whatever the investment portion of the insurance.
It's just
know that somebody's got to get paid for those things. And those payments come out of your long-term returns.
Exactly. And simplicity is the name of the game here. Like that is the goal.
But when, especially if we come from a place where we're not financially literate, it might, all these big words and rules and guess of returns can sound impressive. And I think that's another reason why they're more successful at pulling people in and getting their fees out of your pocket. And then over time, I don't know how many people, like maybe J.L. Collins would be a good person to ask this question to. How many people does he know that over time, whether they just got smarter or more educated or just frustrated with their current returns, that they actually decided to, get rid of their advisor, do things on their own, and have been happy with their results? I'd actually be even curious to hear about people who may be unhappy with doing that too. That would be interesting as well. Yeah. To hear that other side. I don't think there's many people that would be that way. I don't
think that you'll find many people that would do that if they're actually like numbers people. I think you may find people that may have broken up with their financial advisor and maybe a little bit complacent and maybe have a little bit of, angst about that. However, we all know that the retirement portfolios or investing portfolios that do the best are from like dead people, or people that just forget about their portfolios, right?
Yeah.
So, complacency may not be a bad thing in that situation. But I did also want to bring up like another book that really changed the game for me in thinking about simplicity. And it's that The Millionaire Next Door was like really like eye-opening. Like most people that build their wealth do it really simply, live simply, and are kind of under the radar. And you wouldn't think that these people are wealthy. And that to me took a lot of that pressure off of, what wealth really looks like and how easy it can be to attain versus like, this hustle mindset, this like crazy, all these messages that you hear that, can influence the way that you think or the things that you think you need to do in order to build wealth. So I'm like, Simple Path to Wealth, Millionaire Next Door. Those books are really great mindset shifts for people who are interested in the getting started phase.
Yeah, and another very popular book in the space is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and her husband, her late husband. And I know like in 2016 or 15, another book came out, and periodically it makes these rounds on social media. This is one of the good social media rounds. It's the Index Card. Do you remember that?
Oh,
The Index Card by Helene Olin and Harold Pollack.
No, I never heard of
I
that
think
book.
these two professionals were just sitting, friends having dinner, and one person expressed interest in their own personal life about finances, and the person sitting across from him or her said, I can tell you everything you need to know on one index card, wrote it down. And it's similar to like our order of operations,
Mhm.
max out this
Uh-huh.
versus, and this is US based. But from that came a whole book about it.
Nice.
And I'm sure a lot of the topics are similar to what we're already familiar with.
Yeah.
But that's just one additional resource that we've already shared and that we endorse that someone could find useful.
Yeah, I love it. I love new resources. I'm going to have to check that out.
Do you think one of the reasons that we believe that finances need to be complicated is because we just don't have the financial literacy?
100%. Like it's sorely something that's missing in our education systems, and just because generationally, like our parents weren't really taught it, um, we lack the basic knowledge to understand what it takes to have financial freedom, or what it takes just to manage money properly. And so, yeah, that literacy piece is key.
Yeah, I am somewhat encouraged by, on a national scale, that when we were going through high school, I don't know that it was offered, personal finance was offered in your school, but it darn sure wasn't
No,
in mine.
no.
And even if it was, I don't think anybody would take it. But now, I think more than 20 states are mandating financial literacy classes in some capacity at the high school level prior to graduation. Some it's a whole course, some it's a sub course and another course, something like that. But it is being touched upon. My only concern then is the curriculum really, like, does the curriculum support the tenets that the financial independence community think, or are there other external factors at play in designing that curriculum and endorsing that curriculum, which, is it going to be, does it lead to more people being more complex with their finances, or are they advocating, hey, here's an index fund and this is why this beats actively managed funds go? It's as simple as that, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
From what I've
Time will tell.
seen, the people that are spearheading these movements in these different states have been people that are of similar mindsets and of the kind of same space as us. So I have been, enthusiastic about that. Like my antennas haven't gone up too much, but you have seen it in different industries, like where they push financial education. Like I know they do that for doctors, right? They set them up with these financial advisors, early on, or they're put into the spaces where they're at. Or professional athletes, these financial advisors are put into these spaces, and they're not necessarily serving the best interest of the clients. A lot of the products and things that they sell, people are those insurance products, those annuities, things that they usually get really high commissions off of, as opposed to actually educating and putting these people up, setting these people up for success. And like one of the things I love to talk about is like LeBron James wasn't like he wasn't about to be a victim to that. And he just straight up called Warren Buffett and was just like, what should I do like to manage my money? And Warren Buffett was like, listen, I'm gonna tell you what I would tell my wife if she came to me. Put your money in an index fund and just leave it alone and you'll be set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much simpler than that.
Exactly. From the richest man.
For Warren Buffett. Yeah.
Yes.
Are there situations where a more complex investment strategy might be justified?
I think for maybe like less than 10% of the population, right? I think we can get to a point where we're making a lot of money, we have multiple businesses, and we need to make sure that we are like tax wise in a good position. And that's when you need different kinds of financial plans. But for 90% of the population, like if they invest in index funds, if they have whole life insurance, if they make sure that, they have a will and a trust in place, they're golden, like it's just that simple, Yeah. And it does not have to be hard. And this is 90% of people, but those 10% of people are what a lot of people, that 10% of the population is what a lot of people aspire to. And that's what a lot of these people that sell you into these products say, you need to be like them. But no, you don't need to be like them because your finances aren't as complicated. Your life isn't as complicated as them. So why would you aspire to be like them? Aspire to make sure you are doing right for what your needs are, where you're at in your life and your finances right now. Like, nah, don't be like them. Stay in your lane.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. For the masses, simpler is better.
Yeah.
And at some point, whether you're become a high net worth individual, you might need some advanced estate planning or tax strategies.
Yeah.
Or even if you're a professional investor. But we're talking about a smaller percentage of people, not the masses, not the people who are listening to this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And regarding, I want to touch, you did mention whole life insurance.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that people understand there's different kinds of insurances.
Yes.
There's term life, there's whole life. And you can even, if you're squared away financially, you might even choose at some point to self-insure.
Yeah.
So there's disability insurance. So or long-term care insurance. And there's a lot of different names for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But so thank you for bringing up the topic of insurance, but there is more than just whole life insurance, and there are pros and cons to each thing.
Exactly.
And you just have to pick what fits best for you, but educate yourself on all of it before you just default to taking a yes or saying yes to a whole life policy insurance salesman or term salesman or whatever it is. Just understand them before you write that check and start paying those premiums. I
think one thing to differentiate is a lot of insurance salesmen pass themselves off as financial advisors, or, they wear both hats. And so that's where it can kind of be confusing. So, if you're ever confused, be like, well, are you selling me into an insurance product? Or are you actually like helping me financially? And so I usually just tell people to steer clear of those kind of people. And if they really just are interested in getting their finances on track, then just get a flat fee financial advisor that does not have a vested interest in your portfolio or in selling you an insurance product. Like they are just there to give you financial advice. You take the action to implement it, but they have your best interests at heart.
Yeah. And I definitely encourage others to do that, because I think if just out in the world, if a person out in the world just comes across something that they believe is a financial advisor, their default should be that they're not an advisor, they're a salesperson. They're selling you something, period. Like, advice can come along with that, but they're selling you a product for which they get paid. And so then as soon as that happens, I believe there's a conflict of interest for your best interest. And again, separate it.
Yeah.
You can pay for just strict advice and then take the action yourself. Buy that index fund, set up your own Vanguard account or Fidelity account or Schwab or whatever it is. And I believe the only thing that you would need to do as far as like additional in your portfolio, you might at some point need to pay a tax advisor if you get a little bit complex, if you have real estate or you just like want some peace of mind because you don't necessarily understand all the tax code or how things play out or estate planning. Of course, but don't pay somebody an ongoing fee just to call you twice a year and say, let's change all your mutual funds around. Because not only do they get a fee, now they get some kickback from just making the trade itself. And all this stuff comes out of your pocket and kills your long-term gains.
Yeah, I 100% agree that a lot of times people think they need financial advisors, but they really probably just need to consult again once a year, like a CFP to do some tax planning, or not a CFP, a CPA to do some tax planning. Like I feel like that's a much better value than a financial advisor, right? Sometimes you need a lawyer, like an employment law lawyer, to kind of get your job in order, your workplace in order. That's a better investment, like a one-time thing that I feel like is better than paying for these financial advisors. So I don't across the board advocate that everybody needs a financial advisor. I believe, like I said, like 90% of people probably won't benefit as much from a financial advisor, but most people will benefit from a really good CPA, a really good lawyer, things like that, like estate planning, all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the single resource that I recommend to people, you've already mentioned it. So if somebody's like thinking, oh, I know I need to get around to doing something, whether it's your 401k investing or whether it's external brokerage account investing, or even how to think of it, and you have no idea really where to start, do not go to a advisor first.
Yeah.
Go pick up J.L. Collins' book,
Yep.
Simple Path to Wealth.
Yep.
Read it from cover to cover. It's an easy read.
Yep.
Believe it or not, it's an easy read for any book, not just a financial book.
Listen, I have read that so many times. I have it on, first of all, J.L. Collins has the best voice. So I have it on Audible. I have the physical book and I have the ebook because I go through it all the time. It is such a great book and it is an easy read.
Yeah, I know we're talking about J.L. Collins, and I'm going to do a shameless plug for this podcast. If you look at an earlier episode, I actually interviewed J.L. Collins
He's the
and
GOAT.
Paul Ann just alone. And then there's another episode where I have him and Paul Merriman, two very well-known and respected people in the space. It was pretty cool to have them both on the show. So if you're interested in what we're talking about, please go back and check out that episode, and then go buy the book and listen to the Audible. I have the Audible as well because you're right. His voice it's just great.
He has a great voice. Yeah.
So if you decide for yourself that you've got complicated finances and you want to simplify them, what are some steps that you can take to simplify?
I think the first thing you really just need to do is just get a picture of where you're at right now, right? And so you list out all your debts, you list out all your investment accounts, your assets. You start tracking your spending for the last 2 months. Like, go through your bank statements, go through your credit card statements, and get a good financial picture. And then you can start putting things in categories. Like, it's nothing like just seeing everything like in one big picture. And there's apps that do this as well. Actually, we talked about Every Dollar, but that's not as comprehensive as like a YNAB. But what I've really found resourceful lately to like kind of see everything in a big picture is Monarch Money. They have a really good app where you can see all of your accounts. You can see your income, your outflow, everything, your cash flow. That's what it's called. So you have these different screens, but it captures all of your finances in one place. And then you can get to a point, like, you just need a starting point. You need to set like where you're starting from. And then you figure out like, what is your first goal, and work on one goal at a time, right? So if your first goal is going to be, you know what, I need to pay off debt. I need to focus on debt. Okay. Start there and get a plan in place to start working on your debt, one debt at a time. And then move on to the next thing. Like drill down, simplify it. And then if your next step is, okay, I need to start investing. Okay, focus on one thing. Make sure that your company retirement account is set up and optimized. Just focus on that. Once you get that down and automate it, move on to the next thing. So, simple, easy, step by step. But the first step, get that picture in front of you so you know where you're starting from.
So not only get a ground truth of, net worth,
Yep.
categories of spending.
Yep.
And I think that'd be eye-opening for, honestly, I haven't done that in a while. It might even be eye-opening for me to do.
Do it. And Monarch does that. Like, your first thing you go to is your net worth. You see your net worth at a glance, and you see all your accounts. You see your cash flow. Then there's the budgeting tab. And so I think that that's a great resource. It's a relatively new tool, coming out of Mint closing down. But yeah, I'd say do it. I want to see. Screenshot it.
Okay, yeah. We'll put that link in the notes too, because I'm going to check it out myself.
Yeah.
One thing that I've come across in talking with people about finances, because once people know that you like finances, then you become like the local money guru, and everybody, hey, I got a question about this. I got a question about that. And I'm glad to help.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've come across, and these days people rarely stay at the same job for very long. So one of the things that happens is they have a 401k here, a 401k there, and they may not know what they're in. They may have lost their login. They have no clue. So one thing that I recommend is that they first off find the login and try to figure it all out, what they're invested in, and then consolidate all that into one account so that they can manage it. And you can open up a rollover IRA. If you're no longer with a company, you can open up a rollover IRA with any major mutual fund company and manage it yourself at that point. So that's another way people can
But let me just say
simplify.
that there's a free tool that does that for you. It's called Capitalize. and they will help you find all of your logins. So they get
Hmm.
paid in the back end from the investment companies. So it's totally free for you to use, but they go in, find all of your old 401ks, 403bs, and find your logins, set up your rollover account, and bring all of that over. So, because yes, I am like, that's one of the first things that I advise people. Like, you probably got money all over the place. You don't think you're an investor, but you've worked at these jobs that had retirement plans. And so you need to take that money, put it into your own IRA. But that can seem overwhelming. But guess what? It's a free service that does it for you. So do that. So yeah, Capitalize is a great resource.
Another step I would recommend is automate savings and bill payments.
Yes.
So if you automate it, you don't have to think about it.
Yes.
It just reduces all that little noise in your head. Like, did I pay that bill?
Automation is key. Automation is my best friend. The other thing that I automate, because I do use credit cards, but I don't believe in paying interest, is making sure that I have my auto pay set up so that I'm paying like the interest saving balance like every month, if I'm not just wholly paying off the card, but making sure that that in itself is always set up. So I am not paying any interest on my credit cards, and I only put on my credit cards what I have budgeted for. So that's how I use my credit cards, because I believe, credit cards can get you in big trouble. So if you are in a position where you're not able to pay off your credit cards every month, it's probably a good idea to stop using your credit cards until you can get to that point. And once you get to that point, then you make sure that you're always paying your balances in full, automated it.
Another step that someone can take to simplify their finances is to focus on low cost, broad market index funds for their investing.
Yep.
Not only does it simplify it by taking out that third party or most of the third party, and what I mean by that is if you go direct to a Vanguard or to a Fidelity and pick their lowest broad market index fund, as far as when I say lowest, I mean their lowest expense ratio, and Vanguard's VTSEX is 0.04, and I think Fidelity has some zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if I was advising, this is not official advice. If I was advising someone who was just starting out, I use Vanguard, but I would recommend that they use Fidelity, because Fidelity doesn't have that $3,000 minimum.
Yeah, they have no minimums, and they have the zero cost index funds, and they have fractional investing. So you can, if you have $20 to invest, you can just invest that $20 as opposed to waiting until you have the, $100 and something per share to invest. So yes, 100%. Like, we are definitely team Vanguard. However, Fidelity has changed the game, and they have opened up the space for more people to, access investing. And I'm all about accessibility. So 100% right now, I tell people to go to Fidelity. Not investment advice for you, but I'm just like, hey, check Fidelity out, because they're doing a lot of things right.
Yeah, and some of these funds, probably the most popular low-cost broad market index fund for Vanguard is VTSAX, and I believe the equivalent, it's either VFIAX. I think that's FZROX.
It's FZROX.
Yeah, I think that's the zero fee one, right?
Yeah.
FZROX.
So there's a couple of zero fee ones, but the broad base one that's equivalent to VTSAX is FZROX, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can just go to and another benefit of Fidelity. Again, I don't use Fidelity, but
I do.
I do use Vanguard, and a benefit of Fidelity is their user interface is much better than Vanguard's.
100%. Vanguard is just a little spoiled, because they, they old school. They know they got ride or die people for them, so they don't necessarily change as fast. But Fidelity's user interface is amazing. I have both Vanguard accounts, but now, like, my newer accounts is in Fidelity, and I just do everything on my phone. It's super easy. Like, I love the interface. And for both places, I like to say the customer service is hella good. They are so sweet. One of the things that I like to do for fun, because I work at night, is at 5:00 in the morning, if I have any questions, or if my coworkers have any questions, I love to call their customer support, because they are so freaking nice, and they walk you through like all of the things. Like, they don't give investment advice, but if you're just like, you know what, like, I just really wanted to open up a Roth IRA, but I really am kind of like scared, like, and I don't want to mess up. Like, that's what people say. I don't want to mess up because I don't know how to do this. Oh my God, they'll walk you through it, and they are so nice about it. So, those two companies, firsthand experience, love to talk to their customer support.
I'm sitting there picturing a group of like half asleep nurses who have been up all night, getting re-excited at 5 a.m., all gathered around this phone.
We set timers.
Like, put it on speaker, put it on speaker.
Yes, yeah. That is us. Well, fun fact, you cannot, when you're talking to those people, put your phone on speaker, or if they hear something in the background, they're just like, hey, I can't really talk to you about this with like a lot of people, but we do set our timers to it. I do have my nurses like on the phone with them, and they're just like, every time they're just like, they are so nice. And I'm just like, yeah, I told you. So like, it's one of my fun like entertainment things as a money nerd. That is what like brings me a lot of joy.
Well, this has been a really good conversation, and
yes.
I want to focus on the person out there who, it doesn't matter what age, maybe they know they're doing some things they believe are probably right, maybe they are, but for some reason they're still not taking that action. I mean, I've known people, I've had talks with money for years, and they know me, like, and they could just like, hey, David, help me through this, and I would do it, but for some reason they're still not doing it, and so time is not on their side, but something is holding them back. Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you haven't taken action that you think that you should have taken, try to overcome that fear of change and or the lack of knowledge. And you do that through some of the resources that we've recommended here. Really understand your emotional habits with money. Really take a step back and try to observe that from like a third party perspective. So you can understand why you're doing the things that you're doing with the money. And once you identify that, then you can take overt steps to change that. And like you said, start small, pick one goal.
Yes.
And just start tackling that. And the psychological advantages that you'll gain over that, and the motivation, the self-motivation that you'll gain from that will bring you to that next challenge, one at a time. And next thing you know, if you have a negative net worth, now you're at a zero. And if you have zero, or, then you're just up and to the right on the trend line. So, and that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
It's really less about, I think, the final dollar amount. It's more about just getting that trend line going up and to the right, whether you're starting negative or positive. As long as that trend line starts going in the right direction, that has a lot of power, just seeing that.
Yes.
Even if you're not at your $1 million benchmark or whatever it is.
It's 100%. Yeah. And the closings out, I think that, again, a lot of people probably don't need a financial advisor. However, a lot of people could probably benefit from a financial therapist, because money trauma is real. And maybe if you're not taking those first steps, it's something that you need to address that has happened to you in the past that has affected the way that you think about money. So I highly recommend, if you're stuck, work with a money therapist. And I think that would be a really good investment in yourself.
Let's go back over the resources, because you mentioned a lot of them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over the books first.
Yes, let's do Simple Path to Wealth, A Millionaire Next Door. You said the index card. As far as like seeing your financial picture at a glance, at your fingertips, Monarch Money is a great tool for that. And then getting all of those accounts rolled over for free, Capitalize is going to be your best friend for that. But yeah, and then get a financial therapist, get a good CPA, like all those things. I think you'll set yourself up for great success with your money by doing those.
So if you want to reduce your anxiety and stress, improve your mental clarity and focus, enhance your overall well-being and peace of mind for your financial confidence and your actual financial picture, then really take some steps to simplify your finances. And I think you'll be very, very glad that you did.
Yes.
Thank you, Naseema, for being here today. It's a pleasure to meet you. This is our first time actually seeing each other face to face. I feel like I know you because we know so many of the same people.
Of course. And it does not seem like it's my first time meeting you, because you have like an identical twin that I know very well. So it's just kind of like, I already know you. I already know everything about you.
There are definitely a lot of similarities.
Yes. You guys do act very much alike. So, I'm very much at ease with you. It doesn't feel like our first time talking. I feel like I've known you for so long.
Okay, good. Then you'll come down to San Diego and hang out sometime.
Oh, you know what? I definitely will come down to San Diego. I got to bring these kids to Sesame Place, Legoland, the beach down there. The beaches are just amazing. So we'll be there.
SeaWorld, and it just warmed up like 2 days ago.
What?
It has been cloudy and cool until just 2 days ago.
Meanwhile, it's 100 degrees where I'm at. So there's that.
I'll be spending the tomorrow at the beach. It's going to be nice.
Yay.
Thank you, Naseema, for chatting. And thank you all for watching and listening.
Yay.